Welcome in to a special edition of The Script, the podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. You might notice we are all in different places. His real name is Cardale Jones, somewhere in where? Cleveland, Ohio?
Cleveland, the great city of Cleveland, Ohio, 216.
Okay, his nickname is Beanie Wells, somewhere in the 270 loop, right?
Yeah. I'm in Westerville at home right now, just relaxing.
Yeah, flexing his trophies. We'll ask about the trophies in a second. And I'm in Dallas right now, checked in at the Four Seasons, or as far as you know, that's where I'm staying. We're going to pretend like that. So, Beanie, first off, what's going on there? Take us to the trophies. If you're going to flex those things,
So
you got to
I
tell
got
us
to show
what
a
they are.
couple of them. So I got a couple of Big Ten Player of the Year trophies here, Freshman of the Year trophies here. I got some Ohio State MVP, some Pete Dawkins MVP trophies, some more Freshman of the Year trophies. And yeah, I was a pretty good player once upon a time back in the day. So yeah,
And Cardale, I'm assuming that you
a little bit of luggage.
And I assume, Cardale, you painted that lion behind you. Is that why you're flexing the lion?
Yeah, no, this is actually my dad behind me. Yeah, so we just come from a great group of heritage of just straight up pure animals and dogs and killers. And this is a picture of my dad, man. So yeah, you guys get a sneak peek.
So I just landed in Dallas, and the pilot was doing the OHIO on the flight. It's the usual bull trip experience. Flight was loaded with Ohio State fans, as always. So, all right, Beanie, how are the vibes here? We're about 4 days out from kickoff. How are you feeling as we get closer to this game?
I'm pumped for it, man. There's been so much talk, I think naturally, people go back to the 2002 game versus the University of Miami. There's been so much talk about that game. I've been loving hearing the stories from former players. You have Maurice Clarett and some former Miami guys. Miami linebacker, I want to say, I can't think of his last name, DJ something nonetheless, but I heard them talk about the game and their experience. And I heard Maurice Clarett talk about, what it was like to be in that moment and atmosphere and just all the build up for this game. Naturally, the old heads want to come and talk about their experiences in it. So I'm excited about it. It gets the juices flowing. And then obviously knowing and understanding that this is the college football playoff and Miami's a team that really is just now starting to kind of scratch the surface to being back relevant. It's real interesting.
Well, I do want to thank all the Miami fans who are now watching our podcast. Cardale, I don't know if you looked at the mentions or the YouTube comments, but we suddenly have a lot of Hurricane fans invested in the script.
Oh, no, 100%. And I think Miami has one of the most passionate fan bases of any college football team around there. When I talk about passion, for Miami to be such a small school, usually you see passionate fan bases from Ohio State, from Michigan, from Penn State, and other universities because they're so big undergrad. So many people have opportunity to go there if they finish their academic careers there or not. They have some type of emotional tie. And then also dating back to just, being Buckeye fans growing up, even if they didn't go to college or to Ohio State in particular. It's kind of weird when you see this with Miami because Miami being such a small school and such a prestigious school when you talk about on the academic side and you just like, no way all of you guys went there. So, but they put a great product on the field that was easy to cheer for over the years. I mean, I grew up a Miami fan, loving what those guys were doing in that heyday with guys like Ed Reed and Sean Taylor, and the list goes on, all those greats. But I think when you talk about another passionate fan base like Ohio State versus Miami passionate fan base, it's almost like they think we're uppity and they think like, no, let me show you how gritty and how nasty we are. I tell you something right now, Ohio State fans and Ohio State team, they can be just as gritty and just as nasty. So as you guys are passionate about your fan base, we're passionate about ours.
Yeah, it's funny, Beanie, because I saw some people commenting, Miami fans on our last show, saying that they thought we were too cocky or something about Ohio State. I think Miami actually has a shot to win this. I think Miami has a shot to win this game. I don't think they will, but I think Miami has a shot. If they disrupt Julian Sain, we saw what happens when the pass rush gets to the Buckeyes in the Big Ten title game. They only put 10 points on the board. So I know the Miami fans think we're being overly confident. There's a path to Miami winning this game. I do believe that. I just don't think they will.
Yeah, I'd agree. Dave, I thought we were overly gracious to the Miami fans when we were talking about them. I thought we gave them a lot of credit. We talked about how well their defense had been as of late. We talked about the amazing playmakers that they have on that defense side of the ball. Heck, we even talked about how good Carson Beck can be in moments. He's shown flashes this year of being a very good quarterback. But I was like you, man. I'm one of those comment creepers. So I went to reading the comments and I read to seeing what everybody was saying. And, a lot of those Miami fans, they were getting after us and thought we were trying to, be high and mighty. But no, we were called it like we saw it. We thought Miami is a solid football team. They've been up and down. They have shown some inconsistencies, and Ohio State has been a much better product on the field in terms of consistency. Now, like you said, there's certainly a route for Miami to try to win this football game if they get after Julian Sand. If Carson Beck is playing his absolute best, 100%, Miami can certainly win this game. It's not one of those like it's a surefire for Ohio State to go out and run away with this one by any means.
Yeah, I mean, I would be surprised if Miami won. I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, I wouldn't be stunned. I think it's well within the realm. Cardale, the big story, we talked about it a little bit on the last show, but moving from Brian Hartline to Ryan Day calling plays. So you're the quarterback. Kind of take me through what that looks like in 3 weeks of practice, how that changes things.
I think the biggest thing is going to change is maybe the tempo and some of the situational things because at the end of the day, calling Ryan Day or calling Brian Hartline the offensive coordinator, at the end of the day, when those plays are coming in with Brian Hartline being the pure offensive coordinator throughout the season, Coach Day has the abilities to veto, to overwrite any of the things that is said across the headset to get plays that he felt may be working in the better situations. So I don't expect to see as big of a change and maybe some of the things we're talking about, maybe tempo, because one, not just because of the play calling style from the two different callers, but because of how this Miami defense can get after the quarterback. You look at what they did last week versus Marcel Reed and A&M in College Station. They forced a few turnovers and they ended up with 5 sacks. And one of the key things that I thought that helped them win that game is the way they played up front. If you played a little bit more tempo, maybe you tire those big guys up, tire those big guys down a little bit up front, and maybe they're not as effective in the long run when you talk about getting into a one score and trying to seal the game into the fourth quarter.
If you guys are watching us on YouTube, this is a special edition of The Script, the podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Make sure you follow us on Apple and Spotify. Normally, I plug the YouTube guys, but my lighting here at the hotel is terrible. I look like I have some sort of skin disease. You guys both look great. So I'm telling people, listen to this episode, right? We want you to listen. I look terrible here. All right, so Beanie, the running game. A lot of Miami fans in those comments said there's no way Ohio State can run the ball on this D-line. What would your response be to that?
Well, I mean, we've seen people be able to run the football on Miami, 100%. I mean, that's not out of the realm of possibility. Now, obviously, it's going to be tougher. When you talk about, Ruben Bain, Hakeem Massador, and the players that they have at their disposal, they're very stout in the run game. But I just don't believe that they face somebody that is a ground and pound team. And not to say that Ohio State is, but I think as of late, Ohio State has been wanting to emphasize getting their run game going. And I think if we're going to have a chance to win, it's going to be due in part to how we are able to run the football and be a balanced football team. So, like I said, it's not out of the realm of possibility. I think we're going to be able to do it. Obviously, Bo Jackson was starting to come along and make his push later in the season. And the offensive line, if we switch some things up, these guys, I believe, are going to be a lot better understanding the magnitude of the moment and understanding how they looked versus Indiana. They didn't go out and play their best game. They want to be sound and sharp in the pass pro, but more importantly, in the run game. You want to open up lanes. There's not an offensive lineman in the country that wants to pass set 35, 40 times a game. These guys want to get after it and bowl people over in that run game. And this game is going to be no different.
Last year it was Oregon sitting around and waiting for the Rose Bowl. The Buckeyes got hot against Tennessee, kind of righted some wrongs there, and they went and beat the doors off the Ducks. So, Cardale, you don't want to flip it this time. Ohio State's the team that's been sitting around for weeks. What do you do in practice at the Woody Hayes to make sure you're still staying sharp and somehow able to simulate game intensity?
Yeah, I think he emphasizes the small things because the last time this team went out and played, another opponent, they didn't get the results they want. And I think they can go back and self-scout. This was a great opportunity to self-scout the last 2.5 weeks. And how did you fall short? So the biggest thing leading up to this game was putting the emphasis. If I was the head coach in this situation, putting the emphasis on the small things and clearly keeping the intensity up, maybe a little bit more ones on ones, good on good type of situations. And really with Ryan Day calling the plays for the first time this year, practicing more situational football. So I'm talking about the 3rd and 6, right? When you were on the fringe, where you got to make a decision. Hey, if you're going to go for it on 4th down, if you don't get the 6 yards that's needed for the first down, or are you punting, or are you kicking a field goal? Field goal game, field position will play a huge part in this game, as we saw both teams on their last outing didn't have their best performance on the special teams, particular on the kicking side of the ball. So situational football for Ohio State, getting ready for this game and these 14 to 15 practice they're going to have leading up to Miami has to be critical and it has to be an emphasis.
All right, let's get predictions out here, guys. Let's give the Miami fans something else to be angry about in the comments. I'm going to take Ohio State to win 27-17. I think this game might be a little closer than Buckeye fans want it to be. I'm a little worried about the offensive line, a little worried about the run game. I think they can't guard both Jeremiah and Cardale for 4 quarters. I think Julian's going to be real comfortable indoors. He's going to play better than he did against Indiana. I think there's a bounce back there. So I'm going 27-17. Beanie, what do you got?
So I'm going 28-3. I think Ohio State gets after this football game. Look, I know we're going to sit here and say Miami's averaging 32 points a game. They're averaging 414 yards a game, but they haven't played a defense like Ohio State has. And let's not just act like 28 is a lot of points for Ohio State to score. That's not at all. I think that's certainly doable, but I think our defense steps up and plays in a major way and limits what Carson Beck is able to do. And we saw Mark Fletcher Jr. go out and have the biggest game of his career last week. I don't think that happens versus Ohio State whatsoever.
Cardale, I tried to extend an olive branch to the Miami fans. Beanie gave him a middle finger. So where do you come down on the final?
Yeah, taking off my Ohio State diehard hat for a little bit and putting on my analyst hat, I'm going to go with 20-10 Ohio State. And the reason why I think this game, and I think it's going to be close, I think Ohio State get that late score, 13-10 going into the fourth, gets that late score to make the game look a little bit more out of reach than what it really is. Because you look at the way Miami plays defense and you look at the things they're able to do. The last outing Ohio State Buckeyes showed us they struggle protecting Julian Sand. The last outing Miami showed us they can get after the quarterback. The last outing Ohio State showed us they could not consistently stop the run game by Indiana. The last outing Miami showed us Mark Fletcher went for basically a career day. I think in those elements alone, this game is going to be a lot closer than the experts think. And I know that 10 points covers that 9.5 spread, but I think Ohio State gets a touchdown late, almost like that Notre Dame situation last year in national championship, as they pull away where the score looks a lot, where the game is closer than the score really shows.
Well, that's our pick for Ohio State Miami, but we have 3 other bowl games to break down. So coming up next on The Script, we'll go through the rest of the quarterfinals and tell you how we think they're going to shape out. Stay with us.
College football not feeling as juicy as it once did? Well, let me put you onto something that'll shake up your Saturday and every other day of the week. Because now that Wendy's has crispy chicken tendies and a powerhouse lineup of new sauces, it's time you transfer to the hottest team in the league.
That's right. Team Tendies. Wendy's Tendies, they're making their undeniable rookie season one for the books. Enjoy first-string flavor from some 5-star recruits. Rep your new favorite team everywhere you go, but make sure you cheer with your mouth closed.
Take it to the end zone of savory sauces like honey barbecue, creamy ranch, and that new Wendy's signature sauce to experience a total taste bud blitz of flavor. It's time to join the team that won't upset you with an upset.
Taste the phenom that's gracing the gridiron with its juicy, crispy, and tendery tendencies. Don't fumble the bag. Commit to Team Tendies and call the most delicious plays in the playbook. All right, huddle up. Tendies on 3. Tendies on 3. 1, 2, 3, Tendies. Let's do this. Wendy's Chicken Tendies now at participating U.S. Wendy's.
For Buckeyes and businesses, Branded Bills has you covered. Whether you're showing your scarlet and gray pride or you're building a brand of your own, nothing tops a custom hat.
Branded Bills is a proud sponsor of Ohio State Athletics with licensed Buckeye headgear that looks just as good in the horseshoe as it does when you're walking around Columbus. And beyond game day, they specialize in custom headwear that helps businesses, teams, and communities stand out with premium fit, finish, and style.
So whether you are a diehard Buckeye, an entrepreneur, or just someone who want to rep their story, check out Branded Bills. Explore their official licensed Ohio State collection or design your own custom hat built just for you. Branded Bills for Buckeyes and businesses, licensed pride, custom style.
Welcome back to The Script, the podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Make sure you click the subscribe button on YouTube, follow us on Spotify, or subscribe on Apple Pods. We're going to be back in the same room at some point here. I'm in Dallas for the Cotton Bowl. Beanie and Cardale both on the road as well. So, guys, let's talk about the other games. Let's start with the matchup in the SEC. That's going to be a good one, I think. In the Sugar Bowl, you have Georgia against Ole Miss. The Bulldogs favored clearly. Ole Miss is coachless, at least from a Lane Kiffin front. So, Beanie, what do you think of Georgia and Ole Miss?
This is going to be an interesting game. I can't wait to watch it. Obviously, the first matchup that we saw of these two teams early in the year, Georgia was able to dominate it, and they were able to dominate in the trenches. They ran the football really, really well. So we're getting an opportunity to see these teams go back head-to-head. Now, we are talking about a team in Ole Miss that doesn't have their head coach or former head coach in Lane Kiffin. And I think that the biggest question mark that everybody had with them is how would they come out and look post Lane Kiffin with an entirely new head coach? Is this team going to come out motivated? Well, obviously we know who they played last week. It wasn't really a match for them. So this is going to be that key matchup that people look to and kind of project out how Ole Miss is going to look moving forward, not just in this bowl game or in this college football playoff, but the future in next year's football team. But nonetheless, I think Georgia probably win this football game. I just like their defense so much better. I like them getting into a nasty dogfight. They're a very physical football team on both sides of the ball. Nate Frazier, Gunnar Stockton, if he plays mistake-free football, they're going to dominate it. I know I like Kewan Lacey on the other side and Trinidad Chambliss, but I think Georgia just has too much too much firepower on the offensive end. They're too physical on the defensive side.
Yeah, Cardale, if the Buckeyes win, they will move on to face the winner of this game in the Fiesta Bowl. How would you break down Ole Miss and Georgia?
Yeah, very similar to what Beanie said. Aside of two things, when you're talking about the team Ole Miss coming out and lack of potential, I would say motivation to get them ready to play this game without having Lane Kiffin. I think this team is motivated more than anything at this point because they're still fighting for a national championship at this point in the season. But one thing I can say, it's hard to beat a team twice. We saw how Alabama looked versus Georgia in the SEC championship game. I think this is going to be a close game, but the physicality, and then I think the biggest part is going to be missing this game is the situational awareness and coaching that you're going to have from a Kirby Smart that you now do not have from a Lane Kiffin in those tough situations, one score type of situations in the fourth quarter. So I got to give Georgia the edge to come out and win this one.
I assume all three of us would rather face Ole Miss, right? Georgia scares you more, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I would say Georgia would give Ohio State more of a run for their money than Ole Miss. I wouldn't say scared, but I think they match up better versus Ohio State than Ole Miss would match up.
Okay, let's talk about the Rose Bowl here. Indiana, 6.5-point favorite against the Alabama Crimson Tide. We don't really know what Alabama team's going to play, guys, because I think if good Bama shows up, Indiana could lose this game. But Beanie, we never know when good Bama or bad Bama is going to show.
That's the thing. I mean, they're like Jekyll and Hyde, especially in the first half of the football season. And once they lost to Florida State, they started to go on this little run. And then all of a sudden the wheels came falling off. Ty Simpson started to look human. He went from Heisman candidate to not even looking like he should be in that discussion. He's been turning the ball over. And then I think the recurring theme with Alabama is they have not been able to run the football consistently all season long. And in a game like this, when you're playing a team like Indiana that can pin their ears back, they're very underrated in terms of how they get after the passer. You're not going to be able to sit back and just put it in Ty Simpson's hand and say, throw the ball 45 times and go out and win this game. You're going to have to be able to be a balanced football team and have a balanced attack. And I just don't see that happening. I think Indiana wins this football game. I think they have too much on both sides of the football that they won't be able to compete at a high level, especially down the stretch with this Indiana football team.
Yeah, Cardale, it's kind of crazy because if I said, it's Alabama against Indiana, and Indiana is the more battle-tested team. I mean, they took out Ohio State. They did it against Oregon. They got a tough road win at Penn State. I mean, these guys, I don't think anything is going to scare them at this point.
Yeah, and I think their most underrated win, even including the Big Ten championship game, is in Iowa, facing a really safe Iowa team versus the conditions that they had to play in. And the way Iowa plays football, Iowa will run the ball if you got 13 guys in the box. They stick to who they are. At this point in the football season, you look at the remaining teams in college football playoffs, no one is very one-sided. And I would say the biggest difference of teams, you would say probably a 60-40 team as far as throwing and passing, I would say Georgia. But for the most part, everyone's probably 50-50 at worst, 55-45. Alabama is like 80-20 pass to run because of efficiency and the inconsistency of them being able to run and the injuries up front and an injury at the running back position as well. It's going to be hard to beat this Indiana team if you're going to be one-dimensional, especially if you decide to drop back and throw the ball 35, 40, maybe even 50 times a game.
Then the final game on New Year's Day will be the Oregon Ducks, 2.5-point favorites against Texas Tech. I know both of you guys have been really complimentary of Texas Tech this year. Beanie, I think this is the wrong matchup because I think Oregon is actually going to win this game, and I don't think this game is going to be nearly as close as the spread. I just think the Ducks have figured it out.
Yeah, me too. I mean, last time we saw Oregon out there on the football field, they looked so dominant. They looked so explosive on the offensive end. And that was without one of their best wide receivers in freshman DeCorian Moore. I think he's going to be back in this lineup. And, Texas Tech has been a good story this season. They've been a great football team, one of the best that money can buy, that they went out and put together some amazing players, but they haven't faced a team like Oregon. They haven't faced an offense like Oregon, a team that can score from anywhere on the football field, and they can challenge you vertically on a consistent basis. And then on the flip side of that, their defense not only can rush the passer, they're very good at forcing turnovers. So this is going to be an interesting game, but I'm with you. I think Oregon's figured it out at the right time, and Texas Tech just hasn't seen anything like them.
Cardale, if you look at Oregon's quarterback, Dante Moore, he could be playing for a lot of money. I mean, this is an audition here, a big stage for him. A lot of people think he might be the best player in college football at the NFL level. What do you think about Dante and the Ducks?
First of all, if Dante Moore decides to go back to Eugene next year or the NFL, he's going to be playing for a lot of money. And the way the landscape of college football is, period. But you look at this Oregon team, two teams I said you better watch out. They get into the college football playoffs. And Miami is one because they was playing great the last 4 weeks of the season. And they're getting healthy at the right times, and we saw some of those benefits with them going into College Station, and then Oregon was the other team because of the seeding, and now guys are back healthy. Oregon was pretty much shorthanded going against that Indiana team midway through the season because of injuries, and a key injury, a guy was returning that week. Kenyon Sadiq, tight end, who's a matchup nightmare. I look at Texas Tech, great defense, they're good on offense, not great, and I think that's where the matchup, and that's what's going to hurt them. Oregon has a great defense, and when you're going against good offense versus a great defense, you can count on turnovers going to play a huge factor in this game. 1 or 2 extra possessions for this Oregon offense, even though Texas Tech has one of the greatest defenses in the remaining college football playoffs. It's going to be a tough battle for them to climb out of some holes that their offense potentially going to put them in.
Okay, as we finish up our Dr. Pepper look around the world of college football, let's get it on the record, guys. We all took Ohio State. I'm taking Oregon, I'm taking Indiana, and I'm taking Georgia. That's my final 4. Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon, and Georgia. Beanie, how about you?
Yeah, I'm taking Ohio State. I'm taking Georgia. I'm taking Indiana. I'm taking Oregon.
Cardale?
I'm taking the same 4. I think that's very easy to say right now. And just the situational football you're talking about with these last 4 potential teams matching up, and I think this will put in marks of one of the best kind of semifinal national championship games situations that we've seen in a very long time.
Yeah, I think both those would be incredible semifinal matchups. I cannot wait. But coming up next here on The Script, the podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes, the Michigan Wolverines found their man. We're going to break down the head coach who's now leading the Maize and Blue coming up. Welcome back to The Script, the podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Time now for our Buckeye Basement Solution, where we try to diagnose and fix something in the world of college football. Guys, the Michigan Wolverines have a new head coach, Kyle Whittingham. We know him for a long time at Utah with the Utes, a new 5-year deal with the Maize and Blue. So, Beanie, we'll start with you. Is Kyle Whittingham the Buckeye Basement Solution to fix that disaster in Ann Arbor?
I think he is right now. When you look at, Kyle Whittingham and what he's presented to Utah for all of these years, he's been a model of consistency. He's been a model of having disciplined football teams, and they're going to be competitive on a year-to-year basis. When you look at Utah over the years, you always knew if he ever would have got some of those 4- and 5-star guys on a consistent basis, Utah would have been a team that would have consistently been in the conversation for a national championship or a college football playoff run. He just happened to be at Utah. You can't get the same guys. The number one question that I have here is, though, he was at Utah for 21 years. Did he indeed know that he was going to be getting his job? Because all of a sudden, without any whispers going on in college football, he decides to retire abruptly. And now he's the head coach of Michigan. You can't sit here and tell me that was a situation that wasn't pre-planned. It certainly gets my wheels turning like it was.
Oh, so he's saying that suddenly someone gets divorced and he's dating his coworker. Beanie's calling conspiracy here. What do you think?
100%.
As we know, guys, timing is everything, especially in college football. And we go back to a few weeks before, maybe a week and a half before everything that came out about Michigan and Coach Moore, where we saw a guy who would cut off his left hand and maybe even his left foot as well to be the head coach at the University of Michigan, Matt Campbell, take the job at Penn State. I would like to say if this was to happen maybe 2 weeks before all this happened, he taking this job, I think his name would have been thrown in the hat for the next guy in Michigan, and I think he would have sold out to be the next guy. I think this hire with Coach Kyle right now, I think it's a really good hire. I think it's a placeholder to get someone here in the near future because one thing you don't usually see anymore is coaches signing 5-year deals. Everything is like 10-year deals.
Mhm.
So with Kyle
Yeah.
being up there in age, we're having an all-league experience, and Beanie mentioned something really important about his teams over out at Utah. He's never been a great recruiter from my recollection, far as developing or having top 25 recruiting classes. I always call Utah the land of the misfits because I remember when they played Ohio State in the Rose Bowl way back when Jackson Smith and Jigma went for an incredible day, CJ Stroud went for an incredible day, and that stadium was probably 70-30 Utah red in that stadium. And as you're seeing and hearing, oh, this guy from Cincinnati, this guy from Cincinnati, and this was before all the chaos in the portal, he had so many guys from so many different universities who did not start there as a Utah recruit. Now he has the resources. Now he has the ability to go recruit around the country these high school guys, and maybe he keep his old model of saying, "I'm gonna live in a portal and get some guys, some veteran leadership guys," and that's why you always see those Utah teams being so disciplined, hard nosed, and tough. But all the resources at his disposal, and Beanie, I'm with you a little bit on this conspiracy or knowing something that was happening in the weeks because he decided to walk away after 21 years at an unbelievable program and his success speaks for itself. 2 weeks later, okay, yeah, I'll take this job.
Yeah, it is fascinating. You know, Urban Meyer has called him the best coach in college football. We know Urban, that's his guy, right? He loves Kyle Whittingham, but Urban's been very complimentary of him. But Cardale mentioned the age, Beanie. He's 66 years old. It's a young man's game right now with NIL and raising all the funds and transfer portal. It's a lot of work. Now, at 66, I think Cardale's point is this is almost the guy to bring back credibility and basically steady the ship. And then you look for a long-term fix in a few years. But what do you think about a 66-year-old getting back into it
So
right now?
it's obviously going to be tough from that standpoint of him being, up there in age. And some certain questions that you have is he going to be able to adapt with the times? Well, I think he hasn't been out of football long enough to be away from the time, so he understands from a completely different perspective. I think he'll do just fine, quite honestly. I mean, because he hasn't been away from the game. He was just doing it on a completely different coast. But nonetheless, at 65, 66 years old, the thing right now in the way that college football is, they have GMs. They have whole entire personnel teams to go out and recruit, to go out and evaluate guys. So the head coach's job is a lot less strenuous in terms of what they have to do as it pertains to recruiting. He just have to worry about the on-field product. He has to worry about developing guys and getting them to buy into a system and going out there to compete on the field. So his job is a lot less strenuous than it would be in years past when you didn't have all this personnel and staff around him. So I think it's kind of a plus for the University of Michigan with him being his age, him coming in being a reputable coach, having a great reputation, and then him being able to stabilize that program and to be able to, like you said, bring back some continuity and to kind of right the ship, saying we got a respectable guy at the helm of this thing right now.
All right, Cardale, give me a grade on this hire. You seem like you're a fan of it. What grade would you give this?
I get a solid A. Because we talk about the state of that program right now, and I said it last week on the show, guys, you got to bring in somebody with no ties. You got to bring in somebody, a whole new face who's going to come in and install their way. And you got to say, hey, our Michigan way is this, but I'm going to let you add your spice to this. And that's him to the T. You look at the state of Utah when Urban Meyer left to go be the coach at Florida. Not saying it was left in a bad state or anything like that, but he was able to implement his way as he respectfully changed and implemented and, pay homage to the way Urban has built that program and got them on a national respectable level as well. And he just picked up where the time and he just continued to elevate it. Only thing I say about him is going to be a huge culture change coming and living in Utah to Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Yeah, it's going to be something else. It's going to be interesting, though, to see how this works out. I think all things considered, though, Michigan's got to feel pretty good about the way this whole thing shaped up for them. That is our Buckeye basement solution for the Wolverines head coaching search. If your damp or wet basement needs a quality solution by a quality company, it's time to call Buckeye Basement Solution. They are the pros at waterproofing, foundation repair, and creating dry, healthy spaces you can use. I'm talking no more leaks, no more worries, just peace of mind under your feet. Company founder Brian Mastroianni and his team at Buckeye Basement Solutions wish you a happy and healthy holidays. Give them a call, 614-956-4592, or get on BuckeyeBasementSolutions.com. And that'll do it for us here on The Script, the podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. The Bucks in the Cotton Bowl. We'll see how they do it if they can advance to the Fiesta. We'll be talking more about that next week.
Game on.